Simple machines. They are all around us. They have been with us for thousands and thousands of years. And today we are going to introduce you to some basic simple machines. An inclined plane, an example of an inclined plane that you might see every day, would be a handicap ramp going into your school, for example, or a bicycle ramp down at the local park. This below is an example of an inclined plane. You can see that it is not flat. It is at an angle with the point at this point being lower than the point at this point. And you can see it is very subtle. It's not something going up at an angle like this. There's a slight slope. Ramps and staircases are inclined planes. We use them to lift things. People walk up stairways. We would consider a stairway going from the first floor of a building to the second floor of a building an example of an inclined plane. If we were to take a ladder and stand it straight up against a wall, and that was the way we went from one floor to the other, then it would take more force, more work for a person to get from the first floor to the second floor. So by creating slight slopes, slight angles, also known as inclined planes, it allows us to take advantage of something called mechanical advantage. Here we see an example of a pulley. And in this pulley you see a wheel. The wheel is suspended from an object above. We have a rope and we have weight. In this case it's a 50-pound weight. This is a pulley. It is made of a wheel that usually has a groove around it. That allows the rope to stay in the wheel without it slipping off. A flagpole with a rope is a pulley. There are pulleys in the cafeteria that pull up the steel doors. What the pulley will do for you is it will make it easier to lift weight, to lift larger amounts of weight than if you were just lifting them up with your hands alone. Screws. We are all familiar with screws. We see them all around us, but I'm not really sure if we've given much thought to the mechanical advantage of a screw, and also how often this has been used throughout history. At some point later in our discussion, we will be talking about Archimedes' screw. The example that we use here is that spiral staircases are an example of a screw. So people would be walking up a spiral staircase, which again would be easier than climbing up a ladder that was standing straight up like that. Wedges. This is a wedge. They are used to break things into parts or cut things. Axes, forks, knives, and needles are all wedges. So if you were to see somebody chopping wood, for example, the wedge is the part of the axe that would hit the wood and split it open. So that would be giving us, again, what is known as mechanical advantage. Wheel and axle. Our cars, our bicycles, our roller blades, anything with a wheel and an axle that turns around the axle is a simple machine. A doorknob, a screwdriver, fishing rods and pencil sharpeners are wheels and axles, because what they all have in common is the turning motion. You turn a doorknob, you turn a screwdriver. Fishing rod, when you reel it in, it is a circle on an axle. A pencil sharpener, if we look inside the pencil sharpener, has the same motion, wheels and axles. A lever. Lever is a bar that moves on something called a fulcrum. Now, fulcrum is a new word, it's a new definition, but for now just understand that it's a new word in your vocabulary. This is the fulcrum. You can move the fulcrum, which means if I move the fulcrum this way, or if I move it this way, it changes the amount of force that is required to lift this weight.